Our next speaker is Dr. Anas Altikriti, who's very influential and articulate. He is the CEO of the Cordoba Foundation, and he is our last speaker for this evening.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Unfortunately, here we are again. I'd like to thank all the organizers and the sponsors, all the speakers, and particularly I'd like to thank each and every one of you who's made it to this event and filled the hall, and hopefully will stay till the very end in order to make a real contribution towards the issue that we're speaking about. There's so much that's been said, and I don't want to go over areas that we've trodden. I think that we have now come to well know the depth of despair of the Rohingya Muslims. We have gone over this several times. In this particular hall, I can count at least 4 or 5 times over the past few years when we've come together and relayed the words of Amnesty International describing the Rohingya as the most miserable, the most oppressed people on earth. We've gone through the graphic details of the horrific ways in which people are butchered and beheaded. Suffice to say that in any situation when parents wish death upon their own children before they are tortured, before they are raped, before they are beheaded, before they are burnt alive, suffice to say that that is a situation which is almost impossible to describe in words. Or at least I don't know the language that has the words to describe the depths of inhumanity that these people are facing on a constant basis. I'm going to try to touch on an aspect which I think we ought to all leave feeling very strongly about, and that is that the uniqueness of the times that we are in today is that today we actually can do something about it. In the past, when I was growing up, the best that people can do is, if you have a couple of pounds, or maybe if you can make dua. But today, we can actually do something about it. And we've heard about steps. Mabrur has spoken so eloquently. Tonkin, Rushnara, everyone has spoken about what it is that we can do. But it's also very, very important that we also open up the context of why it is. Why is it? How is it? In a world today which claims that it has arrived at the pinnacle of human achievement when it comes to democracy, when it comes to equality, when it comes to human rights, when it comes to respecting others regardless of their faith, regardless of their creed, of their ethnicity, how is it then possible for something of the level of the butcherism that is taking place before the world's watchful eye? How is it possible that this can take place? And therefore, we come to realize that what is happening to the Rohingya is merely a symptom of a graver, a deeper, a darker ailment that we all suffer from. And I mean all of us. Simply because we allow for such crimes to happen, and we pacify ourselves and we pacify those who listen to us and follow us on our social accounts, social media accounts, by condemning or by expressing concern or by making demands by words and not follow up with actions. We need to ask a bigger question. Let us look at the world of politics that allows, not in fact allows, but manufactures the conditions in which the Rohingya Muslims find themselves being persecuted in the way that we have heard throughout today. Regardless, I personally think there is a very dirty, filthy, immoral, inhumane, political, geopolitical game being played at the expense of the Rohingya Muslims in order to preserve economic and energy and trade interests of China, And therefore any kind of peace, any kind of settlement, any kind of stability would scupper or would undermine those interests, and therefore it is in the best interest of China to maintain the violence in that particular region. And that is why China, for the very first time in over 40 years, it used its right to veto at the United Nations Security Council when it came to a vote regarding the people of the Rohingya, condemning the crimes that is being perpetrated. For the very first time since 1973. But it's not just China. Let's not absolve ourselves. It's very easy for governments to point to the Burmese government, or to the Chinese government, or to this government and that, as though it has washed its hands of any responsibility. I will say this very clearly, and I don't know how to say it more clearly. Any government, including ours, any government that supports any military regime anywhere in the world has no credibility when demanding of a particular military regime to stop committing crimes. When Boris Johnson and Alistair Burt and their mandarins in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, when they sing the praises of General Abdel Fattah Sisi, they lose any credibility to demand of the Burmese junta to stop the killing of the Rohingya Muslims. When Boris Johnson meets with war criminal Khalifa Haftar in Libya and discusses with him surrendering Libya to him to become president, he loses all credibility in our name, on our behalf, with our tax pounds. We surrender all credibility to demand of the Burmese regime to stop the massacres of the Rohingya. When the world, having watched 6 years of horrific crimes being committed daily by the Assad regime, to turn now to the Syrian people, the millions scattered around the world as refugees, and say to them, sorry, but you'll have to live with Bashar al-Assad because we have a problem with about 12,000 ISIS fighters. That is a world that has lost all semblance of credibility. That is a world that is now incapable of stopping any crime, whatever it is. In fact, that is a world that has created the premise for the butcherism against the Rohingya Muslims to be perpetrated. I also, as well as everyone here, listened with utter disbelief, shame, to the interviews of Boris Johnson and Sheikha Hasina, describing the Rohingya Muslims as, well, they're people that they need to deal with their government. It's their problem that they're being killed. It's their problem that they're being raped. It's their problem that their children are being burnt alive in front of them. It's their problem and they have to deal with it. That is a world that is devoid of humanity and of immorality. Look at the media. When I was traveling to East London today, just 2 or 3 hours ago, I thought of checking something, just for the sake of it. I thought, let me check the website of our British Broadcasting Corporation and see where the story of the Rohingya lies. I was devastated to find that it was story number 7. Number 7. All this that we're talking about today, it's the story number 7. The fact that over the past 2 weeks, 10,000 people have been butchered. The fact that 250,000 people have been made homeless and are now facing death, either by starvation or by violence. That is story number 7. Unfortunately, I have to bring you even worse news. Because a couple of hours ago, it seems that Jimmy Anderson caught his 500th test wicket in Lord's, so now the story is number 8. That kind of media, unfortunately, reflects the same inhumanity, the same immorality that is prevalent throughout the world of politics. It is a media that is incapable. Listen, anyone who suffers and dies needlessly is a tragedy, and our hearts bleed. But it cannot be that the first 4 stories on every British and international website is about criminals called Irma, Harvey and Jose. Yet we forget the criminals who are butchering people, burning them alive, raping their youngsters. It cannot be that the storms and the hurricanes of the Caribbean, as tragic as they are, take precedence over the fact that man kills man. Innocent people are being butchered in the way that we have heard. It cannot be. It cannot be. But that is where the good news starts. Because we can do something about both the politics and the media. We can do something about both. We can change the status quo. We do not have to accept what the politicians say or fail to say. Now is the time. Now is the time, and Harun Khan said it when he said enough is enough. Now is the time to hold every single politician responsible. I only wish that Roshnara was here and could have stayed to hear me ask her, whilst congratulating her on her efforts, why is it that only 167 MPs signed that letter? What about the other 400? What is their stand? Do they approve of those killings? Do they approve and agree and are happy with the pogroms against the Rohingya Muslims? Why is it that politicians feign empathy and broken hearts when it comes to a dog drowning in Louisiana or Texas, or a family home losing its roof, when at the same time hundreds of thousands do not have a patch of land to call theirs, or a minute of safety to be able to feel the same kind of empathy and apprehension and emotions that normal human beings go through? That is hypocrisy of the nth degree, and we have to stop it. And the media, we need to flood the email accounts of every BBC producer. We need to flood the email accounts of every MP and every councillor. We need to demand of people to stand tall, stand up, speak loudly, speak clearly about how they are going to give in terms of time and effort in order to relieve the suffering of those people, probably thousands of miles away, but still human beings. My dear brothers and sisters, I think that we have all spoken enough and heard enough. Now is the time to act, to do. This is the time to perform. We've heard wonderful statements and speeches, very emotive lines being said. We've shed a tear maybe or more over the description of the massacres that are taking place. But now must come the question, now what? We're now going to see how true our feelings of empathy are through the way in which we interact with our next session. But once again, I'd like to leave you with this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us to no degree, to no amount that we can actually imagine, with the fact that today we live in times where we are not as helpless as we at least thought that we used to be. Today we can do something. And any one of us who can walk 10 strides in order to relieve the suffering of a human being, yet chooses to walk only 8, that is someone who has fallen short by 2 strides. Make absolutely sure that you save not an iota of energy. You save not a word that is inside you, and you save not a penny that you can give in order to help relieve the suffering of our brothers and sisters, the Muslims, but more importantly, the human beings of the Rohingya. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.